Hey Rum fans, another interview for you to sit back and enjoy today. This time I've got Indy on from Skylark Spirits in the UK. I've chatted about these guys a fair bit over the last 2 years. Jazz, Chet and Indy, the founding members of Skylark Spirits. They do import Rhum Damoiseau into the UK. Look at me, I've got that down now. Thanks, Indy. You'll see where that comes from in the video, but I normally call it Damoiseau. But Damoiseau, they were the OGs for Black Tears in the UK, various other rums, the Companeros as well. But Indy, we've got a two-part video coming up. I'll introduce the second part in there. We've got the Oranges coming up in a separate video that we recorded at the same time. But this one, we're dedicating to, I don't want to keep saying proper, because the Oranges are proper, but, you know, for all the rum heads out there, the proper, unadulterated rums, if you like. So we've got the Damoiseau range here. We've got the normal 40, the 50, the what's it called? I was going to call it ombre. What's it called? Gold, and then the XO. So sit back and enjoy a chat with Indy from Skylark Spirits. So Indy, just introduce yourself to those of you that don't know who you are, what you do. Just let the boys and girls at home know who you are.
Yeah, no problem at all, Steve. So hi guys, I'm Indy. I am one of the 3 founding members of Skylark Spirits. Skylark Spirits are a rum-only importer and distributor here in the UK. We carry 10 different rum brands, and essentially we love rum, and we want to bring some amazing rum out to the masses that wasn't currently available in the UK market.
Wow, I've missed it. 10. You've got 10 rum brands.
I have 10 rum brands, Steve. Yeah.
I kind of missed that. Wow. To my knowledge, was Damoiseau one of the OGs? It kind of was, wasn't it?
It was, I think, brand 3. So it was very early on. Yeah, absolutely. But they're very well established across Europe, especially, and then a little bit in the US at the time. So they were a brand that really kind of helped people go, oh, okay, Damoiseau are a very well-known brand. They've gone with Skylark. And it was a lovely collaboration for them to understand the UK market, for us to kind of go, you know what, we're not messing around. We're here to actually showcase some good quality stuff to the market. So it was a perfect collaboration for us.
Basically what we're going to do for you guys at home tonight, we've got we're actually going to record 2 sessions here in one. But the first video, which you're watching now, is going to be what do you want to call these? The main rums? Is that what you'd call them?
So this is what I guess is probably the DNA of Damoiseau, and I'll go into the pronunciation a little bit as well. But this is what you would call the Agricole, the true body of what Damoiseau it wants to kind of showcase as their distillery. This is that kind of flavor.
Nice. And then we're in the same session now, but we'll drop it as a separate video. I've got all 4 of, I can say this properly, I think, Oranges. We've got all 4 of those flavors coming out to play. So we'll talk about those a bit in the end. But let's dive into, go on then, how do we say it properly?
So think of Mademoiselle Damoiseau.
Damoiseau. I can say that.
There you go.
Damoiseau.
Nice and easy, yeah.
So distillery from Guadeloupe.
Yeah, exactly. We are the largest distillery on Guadeloupe, and Guadeloupe's not technically an island; it's an archipelago. So a variety of different small islands that have been put together. And the cool thing about Guadeloupe itself is you have different terroir everywhere you go. Now, I know obviously we spent time this month talking about different agricoles, different cane juice, and understanding that cane juice actually brings out a lot of the terroir. So therefore, when you're it was the only one until last year, there's another distillery that's been set up on our side of the island, which is Grande Terre. Pretty much every other distillery is either in Marie-Galante or it's in Basse-Terre from the 3 islands, and they have completely different terroirs. In fact, the Grande Terre has volcanic soil and we have limestone soil. So therefore, not only are we from a small little island, we're from a small little island that also has different terroir to pretty much every other distillery out there.
Wow. So to talk about, so the terroir will literally affect how the sugarcane grows, but also tastes as well, correct?
Absolutely. You know, because we don't have to go through that chemical process of creating molasses, you're straight in with the ground. You're essentially taking the plant from the ground. And therefore, when you crush that to get the sugarcane, you're getting so much more of that flavor come through the product. So therefore, wherever that product is grown, you're going to get a lot of that flavor profile. I know there are certain brands in Martinique who have their sugarcane fields very close to the sea, and you're going to get ocean spray coming across, and you'll get, for example, some saline flavors that come through some of their brands. And I find that very, very cool. In the same way, there's going to be nothing else that has this flavor profile, which also makes Damoiseau, in my opinion, one of the most approachable agricoles to the general market, because it's quite an acquired taste.
So, bearing in mind, I've not capped these yet. I've actually, to be fair, I've actually never tasted any of these four, to my knowledge. So this is going to be a kind of first off there. But what am I in store for? How are they? How would you say they're different from Martinique rums, for example?
So Martinique rums in general, I find are kind of like the more intense level when it comes to those grassy, herbaceous, green apple notes. I find Damoiseau a lot more approachable because they do have that flavor profile, but it's a lot more dialed down. And I think part of that's down to the fact that we rest our rums in steel vats, which doesn't add any aging in the slightest. It just more lets the chemical process of the distillation part calm down for a little while, and it kind of lets everything settle a little bit, which I think is one of the reasons why that process is a little bit calmer. Therefore, the flavor profiles had time to settle. And then when you go to drink it, you're like, oh, okay, I know it's an agricole, but it's not too intense. It's not too over the top. It's not like, my face is burning, or it's way too grassy and herb. Actually, it's incredibly approachable. And then it's a lovely way to understand how things sit in barrels as well. It reacts really well with the wood that we use too.
I know Guadeloupe does have a little bit of a kind of a geographical, a GI, or geographical indicator, but it's not, from what I understand, it's not nearly as in depth as Martinique, is it? But so how does that affect things?
Essentially, when it comes to agricole, you've got 5 countries in the world, or 5 island countries that can use that term, which I'm sure you've gone over. And then Guadeloupe's one of those. We then don't go into further depth like the AOC does in Martinique. We just follow those agricole rules.
Right,
and then
okay.
we have, like, a cane's got to be from our island. It's got to be sugar cane. It's got to be fermented inside 24 hours of it being cut down. There's a variety of rules, but in general, if you've got agricole in the bottle, it's followed those rules. And I think for me, going into too much detail around AOCs, around anything beyond agricole, is very, very really for those people who want to be specialists in the field. For here and now, I think look for the term agricole. You're getting sugarcane juice. You're most likely going to be getting it from a Creole column still. It's sat in fermentation. It's sat around for a maximum of 24 hours before it's gone through the fermentation stage. And there's no additives afterwards if it's got agricole in the bottle. That's pretty much the main rules you need to worry about.
Okay, so I think the big takeaway, one of the massive takeaways I'm getting so far from agricole in general is that, we look at other molasses-based countries and islands, and there's a lot of importation of molasses going on. It is literally field to bottle within miles, isn't it? How close, for instance, are the sugarcane fields to the distillery?
So, great question, actually. I was in Guadeloupe last May, and so we don't work with one farmer. It's pretty much all from out the island. But as you can imagine, it's a small little island, and we're only getting it from Grande Terre. So therefore, we're only getting it from the small island on the small island, if that makes sense. You're talking 4 or 5 miles, and the farmers will come with their sugarcane. They'll be checked and tested before it's added to our production process. And the cool thing about it, and it's why you can't import sugarcane juice in its rawest form, is because it starts to ferment with the natural yeast in the air very, very quickly. So we try and make sure that it's no more than 24 hours from the moment it's being cut to being pressed and started that fermentation process.
Oh, wow. So even if you guys did your Skylark, you did your job exceedingly well and grew this brand, there's only a finite amount of sugarcane that you guys could actually sort of distill. You can't go Bacardi size, essentially.
Absolutely correct. We don't have the apparatus for it. Our distillery is not set up to go to that kind of level. We are still, as much as we are the biggest in Guadeloupe, you're talking about the biggest in a tiny bunch. Like, no one's huge on that island at all, on that archipelago. And I think it's great to people understand that when it comes to sugarcane, it's very seasonal, right? Sugarcane is literally harvested. So therefore, you can only actually make agricole during harvest season, which is 6 to 7, maybe 8 months of the year at best. So for that other 4 months, we're not making agricole. So not only do we have a finite amount of sugarcane, we also have a finite amount of time that we can harvest before the sugarcane is no good anymore, or we've just not in sugarcane harvest season. So if you're making a molasses-based rum, you can make that all year round because your molasses have that shelf life where you've got no problem. With cane juice, you've probably only got 3/4 of the year at most to make rum. So there's automatically going to be less available.
Wow. As I say, I know we've had this chat a few times, sort of off camera and all that. Sugarcane juice is a really, really new thing for me. And this sort of I've probably been in it personally about a month or so now, doing a bit of research and sort of starting to drink these sort of stuff. But I'm really, it's a beginner entry point. You know, there is so much different variety already that I'm just kind of tasting, but so different to molasses-based rums. And it's this way, you know, I think for a lot of people that agricole kind of smell and nose initially could put a few people off. But you know what? I really struggling to sort of, I don't know what to describe it as. It's one of those things that you kind of associate with agricole, but actually you don't get it too often. You know, that, I don't know what you want to call it, that funk, that...
Floralness?
Sorry, say that again?
Floralness?
Floralness. Yeah, I kind of, yeah. That's a new sort of term to me. I kind of get the grassiness to it. You know, I kind of florals. Yeah, as a newbie, it's kind of always in molasses. It's kind of just a very different vibe, and I'm steadily finding my way down this journey, and I'm loving it, to be honest. The one thing I have noticed though, I do enjoy the 50% ABVs or the slightly higher than the lower ones, and I find that quite interesting. So let's start off with where you would naturally start with that one. I'm assuming the 40% Blanc. Is that the right place to start?
Probably the easiest place to start with. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So talk us through this then. What have we got here?
So the 40 and 50 is probably easy to do together, but that's the 40 with the white label, and the 40 was actually created pretty much for the European and UK market, because if you go to Guadeloupe, people only drink 50% ABV at minimum, if not 55. In the same way, if you go to Jamaica, you're either drinking Ray Nephew or you're drinking rum bar overproof. That's all you're drinking there on the island. They like their rum stronger. But because we're not in that warm climate, we don't have time to be a little bit tipsy during our work days like they can be at times. You know, we work better with 40% ABVs here. So that's why the 40% is kind of around. But yeah, it's basically the same fermentation throughout the whole process. And in fact, it's what you're going to taste. The four products are the same product that's just been aged longer or have slightly different ABVs. So this is off our Creole column still. It is 100% cane juice. We ferment for about 72 hours, which is just adding that our particular strain of yeast. And you're going to get a lovely product that comes off. It rests, and then we drop it to 40% ABV for the bottle. And you're going to get those lovely floral notes. It's going to be quite grassy, but not too intensely on the grassy. And the term the French uses, the perfume of the rum agricole here, is going to be very. There's almost a level of citrus to it as well. But tell me what you think.
I'm getting a right nose of sort of green apple off this. A really vibrant apple.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing. I've gone past that point where the nose doesn't put me off. It's like really inviting. I'm like, oh, I really want to dive in.
It's a great place to be.
Oh, that's lovely. That's soft. That's very approachable. Is this kind of like is it like the cocktail rum? Is it, you know, what is the point of the? I get the 50% is like on Guadeloupe, but what is the point of the 40%?
So the 40s actually, it's to educate. It's to educate you around what actually unaged rum agricole tastes like, because most people seem to gravitate to stuff that has age, and that's no problem at all. But if you don't know what the base product tastes like, you can then never understand what the barrel influence is doing to it. So it's a way of showing that. It's also a way of going, this is our DNA, this is Damoiseau in a bottle. It's actually the 50 rather than the 40 on the island, but over here, the 40 does very well as well. And yes, it does really well in your classic tea punch, which is your deconstructed daiquiri, essentially. And yes, it's very much, they love using it in cocktails. And I do drink it neat. I love it in cocktails too. It is very, very versatile. Probably a little bit harsh for most people who aren't drinking neat spirits, But if you are, this should be very, very approachable.
I like that. I could quite happily sip on that. Quite happily sip. I've found that I really, really love sort of unaged rums. I think that is probably my favourite category at the moment. Really loving some of this stuff. There's nothing to dislike about that. That's just, it's got this lovely cream. Okay, so here's one you might be able to help with as well. I'm kind of, when I'm on these videos, I'm kind of describing the mouthfeel. It's completely different to molasses, but I don't know, it's kind of more luxurious, more silky. Is that right? Is that kind of, should I be saying that? Like, how would you describe the mouthfeel of this, the texture?
I would actually say silky. Yeah, silky is very much the term that I would use for this. It's very crisp. It's not. Sometimes when you drink molasses-based rums, especially if you're going down ones that are spiced or ones that are flavored, you're going to get a much thicker mouthfeel, and that's just because of a variety of different reasons. Because we are just keeping it literally to the distillate here, there's been nothing else to it apart from water added to it. You're essentially at the same texture as water, almost, but because that rum's come off of the still, it's a little bit almost thinner than water, if that makes sense, and it gives it a lovely smoothness, which I would absolutely say is silky.
Totally agree with that. So that's the base 40. So the 50 is exact. See, this is something I haven't cottoned on yet with some of these rums. So this is exactly the same liquid, just diluted to 40, not diluted to 50, not 40.
Exactly, and it's what we it's what the people in Guadeloupe drink. It's for the adults. It's for the more for the more seasoned drinker who wants a little bit more oomph in their tea punch, or who wants to be able to taste more of what the distillery tastes like. Because at 40%, if you're drinking 40%, 60% that's water. Whereas if you're drinking 50%, 50% of this water, so you're going to get what you got in the 40, but just dialed up a little bit more.
Cool. Very, very different on the nose, straight away. Yeah, massive. I've almost got like a salty brininess to it, almost.
There is definitely a saltiness to this. Definitely.
I would say the 40's got more fruit notes coming off it. Don't know. Right, let's dive in.
Yeah, someone told me that saltiness reminded them of back of oyster shells. I'm not bougie enough to know what back of oyster shells taste like.
Oh no, that's lovely. That tastes nothing like how it smells. There's no saltiness at all to that.
Correct.
There is that lovely. I definitely get more sort of green apples off this one, but I get more citrus. Definitely more citrus off the 50.
Yeah, I get a fair amount of the citrus that I get normally is like almost a lemon rind is kind of what I get off that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, citrusy zest, 100% that. That's but again, even at 50%, this is what I'm finding. These are so approachable. I don't think there's the burn that you would naturally expect off a 50% ABV rum with these. These are just smooth, silky smooth, soft. Oh, I like this. So on the island, this is neat. This is typical tea punch. This is, they're mixing. Well, how well, like, what would they mix it with? Just juices? Like, what's the lowdown of how they?
Everywhere you go, it's tea punches, but it's variations on tea punches. It's not just it's rum and lime, but then your sweetener changes. So you could have a honey. You could have you could have like a molasses syrup. You could have what was the other one? I had an aniseed sweetener. You can they play with their sweetener on the island. That's the main thing that they change over there. But for us, a very simple, even just brown sugar that you can stir in yourself is the classic version. But Guadeloupe play with the sweetness.
That's interesting. So they don't necessarily go down the fruity route with the sweetness. It's more that sort of honey spice kind of. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's pretty much anything that will add some sweetness. If they like it, having tried it something else, they'll go, "Yeah, I'm going to try this with my tea punch." Because tea punch is very much culture out there. Every bar I went to was a tea punch and a beer, tea punch and a beer, tea punch and a beer, and then there's just kind of variations on that tea punch. And it's really cool to kind of see how they drink the product.
Is the tea punch, is it savoured, or is it, like the bartender greeting with a daiquiri, it's gone in 2 gulps, gone in 3 gulps. Yeah. Is the tea punch kind of savoured? Is it kind of sipped on, or?
It's a mix of both. It depends on where you are and what you're doing. If you're at the bartender, you will hit it. But if you are sat out in front of you, you will sip it. It's a mix of both.
Right, I like these. What I'm going to do, I would have said it at the start of the video, but what I'm going to do is actually my kind of little tasting notes at kind of the end of the video. I'll edit that in, but there, so we go through this. But yeah, I'm a big fan of those so far. So let's, oopsie.
Oh, gently.
The 50%'s kicking in straight away. So now we sort of get on to the gold. It is called gold, isn't it? Yeah, rum gold. So how does this fit into the portfolio?
So this would be the next step up of the Damoiseau range. This is aged for 18 months now. We exclusively use ex-bourbon barrels. We've never done any of these random finishes with barrels. We are very much know ex-bourbon is what Damoiseau is about. So this has sat in ex-bourbon for a minimum of 18 months. And Damoiseau's, all of our age statements are minimum age statements. And you're now going to be able to see, this is at 40%, you'll be able to really see the difference that the wood makes and how much it evolves the Blanc 40 to the gold in just 18 months in that wood. It's a lovely understanding of wood management and how wood affects a spirit, especially when you've got something which is so terroir driven that you'll see those differences very, very clear.
So how I would sum this up, I still get that green apple tone. I still get that citrus tone, but it's kind of coupled up with a little bit of vanilla now. Not too much, not you know, not a lot, but that is just sort of rounding it off. It's really soft, even softer than that to drink. You know, it's just an absolute pleasure to sip this.
And I think absolutely that is, for me, a lot of people, when they talk about spirits in general, they will start you unaged and move you along and move you up. I actually think if you are brand new to Agricole, I think the gold is kind of the right place to start for you to understand what the unaged rums taste like without having all the intensity of it. Then maybe go down to the unaged, then take you further aged, or even start maybe even slightly higher age, so there's more barrel influence because people are more used to that wood. Then you bring them down to the gold, then you bring it down. So you're removing wood flavors, giving them more of the Agricole. It's a bit different.
Interesting. I like that philosophy. That's yeah. I never thought of that before, because you do start people at the kind of white unaged. But that's actually genius, because this is actually a lot softer and a lot more approachable than what that is.
Exactly. And once you've tried the gold, you kind of have an idea of what to expect. And when you then go down to the 40, you've lost that oakness, you've lost the vanilla, but you're getting more of the Agricole coming through. So you're kind of ready for it.
I've just got a little subtle hint of chocolate coming off there. Not nothing drastic, but just a little bit of chocolate on the finish. So again, what would the use case for this be? Is this another? I mean, I'm totally happy sipping that neat, but is that a tea punch? Is that a cocktail? What is that sort of rum?
So yeah, you could, if you're finding your tea punches are still a little bit intense, some people will dial up their sweetness to help combat the intensity of an unaged. But you can also swap around the rum to something that's got a little bit of aging, which is a little bit softer. So absolutely can be used in that tea punch. I also like the gold, actually UK market with cola and general mixes, just because the wood helps it come through with cola, but the grassiness actually punches through that cola flavor, so you're still getting some of those green notes with Coke, and I think it works well.
I can totally see that, actually. That's got that sort of profile to it. Totally see that. We've now done the gold. Now, when I was discussing with you pre-stream about what rums to actually kind of get used, I was kind of going to get the VSOP, I think it was, or maybe a VO, I don't know. But you said don't worry too much about that. So we went for the XO. But is there a rum in between this or not?
So there absolutely is more than one rum in between that. Right. Essentially, Damoiseau have a variety in their range, and it would be lovely to bring every single product that they do to the market. Unfortunately, it just wasn't the right idea, so we tried to pick and choose, and we've tested certain rums in the market, and some of those are staying, some of them aren't. In between the gold and the XO, we have the VO, which is aged for 3 years. We've got the VSOP, 4 years, 5 year, which is 5 year. And now we have the XO, which stands for extra old, which is a 6-year-old.
Right, okay. So it's a Skylark decision, well, combined with Damoiseau. It's a sort of collective decision that actually you know, concentrate on what sells in the market as opposed to, you know, the rums are not being made anymore.
Exactly. And also, obviously, as you can imagine, with the amount of sugarcane there is on the island, the amount of production you're doing, there is very limited range of age stocks. So it's a matter of, do we say, yes, I want loads of 3-year, or do we let the 3-year sit till we get to 6-year, when some people think the 6-year works better for our market here in the UK. Some people think the 3-year works better in France. It's just, it depends on where you are and what think works well for the community here.
Right. So this XO, 6-year, essentially that rum again, but sat in a barrel for American oak for 6 years, correct?
So yes, but we're stepping up in ABV a touch.
Ooh.
Just a little bit.
42%.
42, just a little bit. And that is, it's come out of the barrel at higher ABV, and then it's been brought down in ABV to 42, because we think that extra couple of percent just starts to give you a little bit more than that 40%, but we didn't want to go too high with it. And this is a lovely sip.
So this is characteristically a sipping rum. You could do it with tea punch, but it's a sipping rum, correct?
So you probably wouldn't go this aged with a tea punch. Tea punch is all about highlighting that base spirit, and then kind of keeping it fresh and easy. And it's all about actually being very accessible. The XO being a bit more expensive, you would probably now want to go on to, if you're going to put it in cocktails, you're going to go to like old fashions, you're going to go to Manhattans, those kind of cocktails you're only touching with. You don't want to go too intense with it. However, it has been known to make an amazing Mai Tai. So.
Ooh, interesting. So again, it's still, there's this little bit, there's a little note that I'm picking off it. And I can't quite sort of pick, it's maybe like a solventy sort of glue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that's right. That's not right. I'm not sure what that note is. There's a lot of vanilla there. But it's still that inherent sort of citrusiness. I'm kind of getting this like citrus. I think that's the Damoiseau sort of.
It's good. It's good. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Signature note, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the XO, this is actually where your barrel influence is now actually changing the flavor profile to actually head towards a bit more leather and tobacco. Those are notes that I start to feel like become a bit more prominent here. You still get some of that agricole notes from the 40, from the 50 coming through. But here, I think, because it spent 6 years in barrels, that barrel influence is really starting to become quite intense. And I think the way that the interaction is with the fluid, it brings out those kind of flavor profiles, cigar box, not quite a fresh cigar, kind of slightly worn leather rather than fresh leather. But everyone's taste palate's a little bit different, but that kind of end of the flavor spectrum.
That is absolutely gorgeous. That is a stunner. I've got a little bit of prickly sort of spice from the barrel aging, but nothing dramatic at all. It's just, It complements it more than sort of detracts from it. It's, that's gorgeous. A little bit of a honey tone as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether that honey tone is actually the smoothness, the sweetness. This is where I'm struggling, because I want to call it, this is not a sweet rum. There is no sugar added to this, but it has got this lovely sweetness
natural
to it, if you like.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's naturally sweet, not sweetened, right? And that's what the natural sweetness of, because it is ex-bourbon barrels. Bourbon's naturally a sweet spirit, right? From the way it's made, from its core and stuff. So you're taking some of those natural sweet notes and then interacting with that rum. So some of that natural sweetness is coming from that barrel. And obviously when you sit in the wood, you're getting interaction with that wood. It's taking out some of the harshness. It's bringing in some of that sweetness. And actually the way the chemicals react, it brings in this natural sweetness to the flavor profile, which I think is lovely. It's great sipping, works really well with a cigar, really well with just some nice high-end cocktails. And it's really kind of where you're going, oh no, now I'm sitting and I'm enjoying my evening with a nice glass of this.
The way I like to sum this up, this is for me 100% a session rum. This is I'm having a glass, and then there's no questions whether I'm having a second glass or that. There's nothing sort of putting me off at all. That you would quite happily get through that, quite happily. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, and that color on it as well is really that kind of really deep golden. Yeah, you got the little bits of whites on your shirt. Yeah, It's
There
a
it is.
beautiful colour in the house as well.
Yeah, lovely. So this is a permanent availability in the UK. This XO.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's nicely summed these rums up. As I say, I'm going to do my own little sort of tasting for the guys at the end of this video. But yeah, my takeaway from this is these are really soft, really approachable rums that I think any rum lover could really get into. There is nothing here that would put anyone off, I don't think.
And I think that's the beauty of Damoiseau is if you want to explore the cane juice category, it's a lovely way for you to break in with the gold and the 40, but it still has some of that lovely range of the 50. There also might be a 69% coming, which is also there for the top end. Sneaky little exclusive here.
Hello.
And then some of their long age stuff is also fantastic. There's a couple of limited editions out in the market if you can get hold of them, which are truly special, and that is stepping up in ABV to your mid 60s. That is really, really unique. You're spending probably double the price of your XO at least, but you're getting such a crazy product if you can get hold of it, because obviously, as we said, it's limited releases, and these ones are single vintages from years, and once they're gone, they're gone.
So that comes from Damoiseau themselves. It's not like an independent bottling or anything like that. That's
correct.
Right, cool.
They'll all be
branded. Have to look out for those. So it is worth pointing out that all of these rums, because my channel is rums, sort of £50, $60 US, sort of 58 euros. That's slightly pushing it, the XO, but it's there or thereabouts. So these are very well priced, competitively priced rums. I like these.
Yeah, absolutely. We tried to make sure that the pricing wasn't crazy. We tried to make sure that they're in line where people who should be drinking them have access to.
Cool. Right. So what we're going to do now, this is for this video, but we're going straight in to the oranges. So if you want to know what these are, you'll have to tune. If you're watching this live, you'll have to tune in tomorrow because the video will drop tomorrow. But this will be a separate video, I think, on the other channel because these will be flavoured rums. I'm not sure that's a politically correct term, but these are the oranges. So we're going to dive straight into these now and taste them, but you can watch that in a separate video.